actually going to break a little bit early in this segment so we can get to Rodney a little bit early to have some extra time. Speaking with Rodney, I actually dug into the amendment. So when we get Rodney on the line, because he is so involved and so knowledgeable and can provide so much insight about local issues and local races and these local amendments and these amendments on the ballot for Missouri voters. I want to go through some of them. I want to kind of go down the line and touch on each one. Amendment 2, Amendment 3, Amendment 5, Amendment 7. And I actually read them all in the last 24 hours, which is very sleep inducing. And so I took some notes and I picked out some various areas within each one that I want to specifically ask Rodney about. And, maybe we can all learn a little bit more about these amendments that we will be voting on in 6 days. So very much looking forward to that. Whatever we'll just continue the conversation with Danny from, we'll just keep rolling with Danny right after we talk to Rodney. And then we'll need a little bit of a break. And on Wednesdays, we always get a little bit of a break because we open up Close's Cabinet and have a little bit of fun with our buddy Mark Close from KC95 and Skip Weber from Weber Chevrolet. And we'll do that today in just about an hour, just after 3:00. So we've got it all for you today here on Colombo and Company. So before we get into the conversation with Rodney Boyd, Emily, you and I were talking yesterday about Tony Hinchcliffe's garbage joke.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a joke about garbage, and it was a bad joke. It was a garbage joke on top of it. So yeah, the word applies and in just about any aspect of it. But anyway, we talked a lot about that yesterday and how much the Democrats were making about the fact that a Trump supporter, some outlets were actually reporting that it was Trump that said it, which he didn't. It was somebody speaking at his rally on his stage at his rally. So he's certainly responsible, for what happens there.
Been checked out.
But if this is such an unforgivable sin, that if this is such a big deal that somebody at a Trump rally called Americans garbage, a section of Americans garbage, then we have to apply that guilt and sin equally, right?
Yeah, and I'm sitting here wondering why we're not. And I think that the approach that they're going to take is, well, one's mean and then one's mean and racist is like probably what the
so you can
the
be,
point is.
so
You can be mean, but you can't be mean and racist.
You can't be
and they're going to
racist
say
against,
because you
can't be racist against MAGA. It's
yeah,
not like that's not a.
I don't think. I think that Puerto Ricans probably they're gonna say like that's a bigger generalization, right?
Well,
like
you know what? You know who I haven't seen making any big deal about this? Puerto Ricans. I mean, I'm sure they don't appreciate the joke, but I'm only hearing the pushback from a bunch of liberal Democrats and how you just you're not allowed to call Americans garbage until Joe Biden did that exact thing yesterday, responding to this. He was on a Zoom call, which first of all, Joe Biden operating a Zoom call. Yikes. Just does not look like somebody who's very confident in their technological abilities. He was on a Zoom call doing an interview where this got brought up, and he called Trump supporters, all Trump supporters, garbage. Here, we have the sound here. I'm gonna play this for you now. Do you have that up over there?
Yep.
Perfect. Here we go.
And I would expect. Here we go. Joe Biden talking to a group of Latinos by way of laptop computer.
Or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
The only garbage I see floating out there are Trump supporters. Also, can we break this down for just a second? Leave that up for a second. The man can't help himself with like trying to remember. He's the one that he was raised by a Jamaican family. He was raised in a Puerto Rican community. He was raised in a Jewish community. He went to the Jewish church. He went to the Christian church. He went to the Catholic church. Yeah, he's been raised by everybody. Did you hear him at the very beginning of his when he said that he was from Puerto Rico? Here, let me go back to listen to the beginning of this statement by Joe.
I'm in my home state of
Oh,
Delaware.
I didn't go back quite far enough. Here we go. Here,
Or
listen.
Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware.
Where I'm from, my home state of Delaware.
Delaware.
What was he trying to say other than
Puerto Rico and Delaware are not geographically close to each other at all either.
Exactly.
I'm like, I don't know if you're saying
Exactly
though,
what I
like
was
there's a
gonna
lot
say,
of
Emily.
like they're not even close on the map.
You can't make that. Yeah, you can't make that like just like
It'd be one thing to be
easy
like,
mistake.
oh, you know, Florida, we
Yeah.
have people come over from Puerto Rico and visit.
Yeah,
or
like, you
but
can't-
Delaware is a really random place. I mean, that's like being like, well, Missouri, you know,
right.
where I'm from.
Yeah, exactly. So you're right. Like there's nothing
I don't
about
know why you
Delaware.
included that.
There's nothing about because he can't help himself. That's what I wanted to point out. He cannot, the man can't help himself. If he's talking to a group of people, he has to have like personal historical ties to that.
That should be
group.
an SNL skit in and of
He
itself.
just can't
of just
help
like,
it. That's
you know,
why he's been
cycling through.
That's why you can literally find clips of him saying that he was raised by Puerto Ricans, that he was raised in a Jewish church, that he was raised by Jamaicans, that he was raised Catholic.
Which one raised you?
I mean, it's literally everything. And he almost did it again. Here, one more time.
Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware.
Puerto Rico, where
was
I'm
he
from.
about to say? Was he about to finish the statement with Puerto Rico, where I'm from?
Yes, that's what
in my
he was
home
saying.
state of Delaware. So Puerto Rico, where I'm from, in my home state of Delaware.
Yes.
It's not Puerto Rico.
He
Is not
stopped-
in Delaware.
He stopped himself from saying Puerto Rico, where I'm from.
Quote Joe Biden.
To somehow shift to Delaware, which, as you said, has nothing to do with Puerto Rico. It is too much.
Or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of
Fact check.
He's an idiot. He's an idiot.
Fact checking. Imagine, you know.
Also, right. Yes. Flip test. How about like so?
Yeah, Trump, in fact, was not from Puerto Rico or Delaware. You know, like.
Now, again, we were told the only reason this is a big deal is because we were told it was a big deal. We were told by the media and by Democrats all for the last couple of days that this referring to any group of Americans as garbage is a big deal. So if it's a big deal, it's a big deal. So it needs to be talked about. And Tony Hinchcliffe is a comedian that you can think whatever you want about. And, you know, we talked about it yesterday. I didn't think it was certainly not the right place to be up there telling, you know, that type of joke, but it was still a comedian telling a joke. This is the president of the United States. This is different than a comedian telling a joke. This isn't a comedian telling a bad joke. It's the president. And he has, when you listen to it, he has hatred in his voice. You know, the only garbage I see out there are his supporters. You know, there's so much hate and anger in his voice, and he's the president of the United States. And then, the fact that he can't even, that he has to go into pander mode and start to make the claim that he's from Puerto Rico on top of it all because he's talking to a group of Hispanic people. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So, I mean, I don't know if it's a big deal, if it's absolutely an absolute sin, then the president has done that. And then, of course, the spin was on today. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz both. I think I had a quote here from Tim Walz. Tim Walz was on Good Morning America today talking about it. He said, quote, "The president clarified his remarks, which was that all he meant to say was that you shouldn't demonize Latinos. That's how he clarified it. Tim Walz was on Good Morning America today. He said, quote, "The president clarified his remark, but let's be very clear. The vice president and I have made it absolutely clear. He wants to know that you're clear, he's being very clear by repeating the word clear, that we want everyone as a part. Yes, as a part of this. Donald Trump's divisive rhetoric is what needs to end." Joe Biden calling half the country garbage, half the voters of the country garbage, is not the divisive rhetoric that.
Yeah, and I think it's important to go back to, like, it's not, that comedian, it was not right, I don't think, and it was
No.
not, it was in poor taste for
I
sure.
agree with you.
It was not Trump, and also, yeah, he should have probably had that cleared by some campaign manager, or somebody should have looked over that.
Maybe it was.
But also, it doesn't make it better to, like, then in turn call other
Exactly.
Americans. It's like,
Exactly.
yeah, one thing happened, but,
The
I
old
mean,
two
you could be
wrongs
the
don't make
better
a right.
person,
Right.
right? Like,
The old two wrongs don't make a right. And I think that there's a big difference between a comedian that is up there speaking and telling jokes. By the way, again, where he made fun of multiple different demographics of people. It wasn't just Puerto Ricans. Tony Hinchcliffe was picking on multiple groups, and they cherry picked that, of course. Again, not to make it right, but context is still important. So that is a comedian up there, telling jokes, whether they're appropriate or bad or not. It's still a comedian up there, not the president of the United States, on a Zoom call calling half the country garbage. So I just think there's a massive difference. And the reason I think that there's a massive difference is because I was told so by the Democrats in the media all day yesterday. All right, we'll get back into the presidential election and some of the national news as we roll through the afternoon, but I want to dig into the local issues. As I mentioned, I, in the last 24 hours, have read the better part of almost all of the amendments, and I took some notes and picked out some things that, you may or may not be aware of. And I have my own questions about these things. And so we are going to ask those questions and talk about these issues when we get the Missouri political insider, our good friend Rodney Boyd, on the line. He joins us next here on Colombo Company.
News Talk STL.
First thing in the morning and pretty much all day.
Live and local. 101.9 and 94.1. News Talk STL.
Republican Adam Schnelting is a husband, father, and soldier. As an Army combat engineer, Schnelting trained to fight for us, trained to solve problems, and that's just what he's been doing. As state representative, Adam fought to keep men out of our daughters' sports and bathrooms. He voted to cut our taxes and fully fund our schools. And his tough on crime stance has earned him the endorsement of the Fraternal Order of Police. November 5th, vote Adam Schnelting for state senate, and he'll get the job done for St. Charles County.
Paid for by Schnelting for Missouri, Mike Summer, treasurer.
Well, if it's time to sell the house, why don't you go with the realty team that already has home buyers who are approved and could buy your house right now? That would be the Wallner Home Selling Team at Berkshire Hathaway. Two great folks, Rodney and Jen Wallner, who happen to sell 15 times more homes per year than your typical realtor. And besides the husband and wife perspective that you get, you can also do it in Missouri or Illinois. Just call 314-810-SOLD. That's 314-810-SOLD.
Well, Vic, you're absolutely right, of course. I mean, here's my challenge. Just give them a call. Say, hey, Mike Ferguson was talking about you guys. Call Rodney and Jen, 314-810-SOLD. Because when you are making a decision on something as crucial as your home, as crucial as real estate, you want people who know what they're doing, but you want people who are ethical, easy to work with, and focus on empowering you to make the best decision. Give them a call, 314-810-SOLD.
Craving the most delicious pizza in town? Head to Monocle's on Highway K in the heart of O'Fallon. From thin crust to pan pizza, gluten-free options, and every topping imaginable. Monocle's has you covered. Indulge in mouth-watering calzones, party-sized salads, and our famous sweet and tart dressing. Family-owned and locally operated, Monocle's serves up love and care with every bite. Dine in or carry out, and don't forget to try our banana-licious monkey bread for dessert. Order online at monocles.com or stop in today and tell them News Talk STL sent you.
The Allman Report.
Wednesday on the Allman Report, my friend Rick Pogue and Republicans make a last-ditch effort to derail Trump. It's the Allman Report, News Talk STL.
Jamie Allman. Weeknights at 8 on News Talk STL.
Welcome back to Colombo and Company on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL. As I mentioned in that first segment, in preparation for this final discussion before election night with the great Rodney Boyd, I actually went in and read the amendments. And as we've talked about, Rodney, it's very sleep inducing, but I read them because I knew that there'd be stuff kind of hidden in there, like you hear various takes on these amendments and what they say. And I wanted to understand what they really did say. And so I dug through the various amendments and some of these other races. And I want to talk to you about all of that now. Rodney Boyd, Missouri political insider, is on the line with us, Rodney. And 6 days away from the election, it's
really hard to believe that it's 6 days away, because I remember we were talking when it was, 300 days away.
Yeah, right. A year away, right?
Like,
yeah, I know. And now here we are, right on the precipice of everything. Before we get into the specifics that I want to talk about, how are you feeling just in general about the momentum of this election? Do you feel like it's solidly on one side or the other? Are you feeling like there's going to be a tremendous amount of turnout? Just overall, what are your thoughts, at this point?
well, it's funny. I mean, because we're using elections in the broad sense, and obviously our brains categorize things federal, state, local, right? So I really feel like turnout will be pretty consistent with the past 4 years. I don't expect it to be any record numbers. I think turnout will be fair, still lower than 100% of all the registered voters.
Yeah.
But I still think there's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, I think there's three categories of voters: people that had their minds made up 300 days ago, and they haven't really changed their minds. And then what I'm struggling with is there's some percentage of voters, Tony. I don't know whether it's 5%, 10%, 15%, that literally are still, believe it or not, finger to the wind. Right? They don't like either option. They're not sure what they're going to do. Then they'll make the decision probably when they walk into the booth. That's a scary crowd. But there are a number of people that I've talked to who I was talking to a young man on the plane the other day, and we're talking about the election. I don't know why we were talking about it, but he just brought up that he doesn't know that he wants to vote for anybody. And I said, well, it's important that you make a choice because the historical your vote. And he said, yeah, I'm thinking about writing in someone from the past. And what was interesting to me was I wondered how many people he represented, and I don't know. I don't know who this group of undecideds are that just find that they have a difficult time at the top of the ticket on the federal level voting for either candidate. And then what do those people ultimately do? And if they don't vote, they choose to skip that and just vote on local stuff. Who does that air to? Who does that air to in terms of the folks that do have a loyal base that will vote for them? So it's an interesting time, man, at the federal level. The state's a little easier for me because I know the trend lines. I know where the trends are.
Yeah.
Someone had mentioned that, do you think that, I was asked this question, I mentioned, do you think that Josh Hawley's in trouble? And I said, I think Josh Hawley will be okay. I still think it'll be a closer race than people predicted, but I don't see the flip happening because I think that in Missouri, I think there's still going to be a huge turnout for Donald Trump. And I'm just looking at historical data where that has served the down ticket, the immediate few slots, particularly under his name, very, very well. We remember Roy Blunt, Jason Kander. It was a very tight race, and in any other year, Jason Kander would have won that race. But the carry from Trump, from voting from the president to the U.S. Senate in that sequence and down to the governor, it really served those Republican candidates well. I still see that as the play that's going to shape out in Missouri. Once again, there's a lot of questions about what does the sports betting amendment do? Who does that attract?
Right.
It probably attracts people that aren't as politically, aligned as many other voters. So the question becomes, once again, what do they do? Amendment 3. I keep hearing from people that there's going to be a lot more support for that than I might anticipate. Some people are saying it'll pass by, low 50%. Maybe even closer to mid 50%. And then who are those voters? And who's switching out? Who's voting Republican everywhere else and flipping over to that column to, as you and I have talked about, not vote for the particular option to have an abortion, but voting to not have it absolutely
the absolute
forever.
yes.
Yeah.
So Rodney, let's get in. Let me.
It's a tricky one.
Let me because I want to just go right down the line here with you as quickly as we can on on these issues, and because you already are bringing up some very important points that I think we could discuss and I have some questions about. Let's start with that race, that Josh Hawley race, the U.S. Senate race with Lucas Kunz. If you remember, it was, I think, the right after the first time we talked after the primary election, that I said to you, like, we may all think that Lucas Kunz doesn't have a chance, but nobody told Lucas Kunz that, because the political ads, the money that's been spent in that race
absolutely
has been unbelievable. And in my brain, so here's where I would like your help. In my brain, the Democrats, I know Lucas Kunz has his own bit of fundraising and all that, but he's got to be getting money from the party, the big party. And they're not going to give him that money if they don't think that there's a chance. And so in my mind, there's been all of this support or all this money behind Lucas Kunz because somebody out there believes that he has a chance. And that race has been brought up by either you or me multiple times over the last couple months. What is it about the Josh Hawley race in Missouri, when everything else is so solidly red and Trump has got this huge lead? Why? And I agree with you. I don't think Josh Hawley's going to lose or anything, but it is very interesting to me that is a race that keeps getting brought back up. What about that Senate race is keeping it in the news, and it isn't the slam dunk like the Trump race or other statewide races that we see for Republicans?
I think there's at least three things in play. First of all, Lucas Kunz presents as an interesting candidate. He's got a strong military background that he plays up to. He's not from the two major metros, so he's not saddled as being a Democrat from St. Louis or a Democrat from. So there's this sort of uniqueness to him that I think a lot of Democratic donors and people that don't like Josh Hawley find very appealing. Right? He's got a certain kind of a non-traditional Democrat persona that people wanted to sort of invest in. And the other part of it is, I think some of it is people look at the issue of abortion and they think there'll be a lot of people who are going to vote for Amendment 3 that are not going to like Senator Hawley's positions. They're going to paint him as someone that would be a total ban person. And maybe if you can present somewhat of a non-traditional conservative type Democrat, that they may decide, you know what, I want Amendment 3 and I don't want Hawley. It's just conjecture, but there's got to be some thinking about that. And then you said it, which is the first point. I mean, Lucas Kunz is someone that fervently believes he can win this race. And so from people that have interacted with him, he's always projected and presented his pathway to success. So he's never showed up and not at least been first self-convinced and then projecting why he could win. So you put him in a room with potential donors, whether they're in-state, out-state. He gives his spiel, talks about the landscape in Missouri, talks about what he sees as vulnerabilities, and it leads to a well-funded campaign. And I think those three things sort of synchronistically is why you're seeing his campaign continue to raise money, why you're seeing people who traditionally might say, well, we don't have a shot, and maybe not even investing in other Democrat races, investing in that race. So I think it's that confluence of things that makes him, to those that say, hey, we can't stomach a Josh Hawley another 6 years, investing money in that race. What they're up against is the voting trends, the voting patterns in Missouri that have held consistently for the last three cycles, that, and specifically the last two cycles with Donald Trump on the ticket, that anybody that's in that wake and has, sort of the credibility, the Trump MAGA credibility, they're going to carry the day. The test will be in 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see for sure. 5 days, forgive me.
Yeah,
5 or 6. I'm losing track.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Just how close we are, and just how much, just how big of a deal that race, that Senate race, has become, and it's going to be very interesting to watch.
Well, and remember this, Tony. It's also against the backdrop of the entire U.S. Senate.
Yeah. Of course.
About what's going to happen in Florida.
Oh my goodness! Could you imagine if a senator, as much as that, it's made the news like Hawley has with his whistleblower reports, if somehow that a Republican senator in a bright red state that's been so at the front of the headlines was somehow taken out by a Democrat? Oh my gosh, it would be the national news would be
Absolutely.
insane. Yeah,
Absolutely.
but I don't think
And
that's
so
what's going to happen. But it is a very interesting race that that we'll be keeping an eye on next or this coming Tuesday night.
And
go
that
ahead.
race will have repercussions, I think, for the next 2, 4, and 6 year cycle, statewide Democrat. I really do. I really do.
So Amendment 2, let's go down. Let's talk about some of these amendments here. We'll start with Amendment 2. It was the longest of all of them that I was reading through, at least, which I thought was interesting. And but it was also the one that had the least sort of like question marks for me. It really just comes down to, and correct, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't understand this as much as somebody like you or maybe others would. But to me, it really just comes down to whether or not you believe they're going to do what they say they're going to do with the money, if you care about that, and whether or not you're okay with this being in the Constitution. Like, really, those are I don't see a whole lot of other controversy there outside of, are you really going to use this money for education? And is this really appropriate to be in the Constitution? I don't see as much there. At least personally, I don't have as many deeper, big questions about Amendment 2 as the other amendments. Do you see anything that I'm missing?
Look, I think that's a fair look. There was only one other issue. It's way down in the weeds, and that was there were those who advocated when this was a legislative proposal for a higher tax on the folks that would be facilitating the sports betting. The tax in the provision is 10%. Some people say that's high enough. Some people thought it should be higher because of the potential windfall that was projected to come from this industry. But the core issue that I think is going to drive people is how you feel about making sports betting constitutionally protected in Missouri, as you said. And the second premise, and the one that gets the most consternation, is the idea that we've heard this song before, right? People are gonna, you're gonna generate all this revenues for education. And so the opposition, which I think is even sort of quieting down, had been that that's a false narrative.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I never understood why they even put that out there, because I asked the question, is it a requirement to tell the voters where money's going to go? And the answer came back no. But I think some people thought, well, it's a rallying cry.
Yeah. Which I disagree with. I think you and I both have discussed this in the past, that I think the people that want sports betting in Missouri, and I think that it's the majority of people, I think that they just want sports betting in Missouri. And you don't have to tell them that their money's going to education. I mean, that's nice, and that's great if it does, but they just want the same right that every other state around us has, and that is the right to bet on sports. I think that's
literally, and a lot of people learned through this ballot measure that we didn't have the regulated sports betting. A lot of people thought that this was something that was already in play, because you see the FanDuel ads, you have the pools of people betting at work, yada yada. So I think this was also a wake-up call to people that, hey, by the way, although 30 plus other states, and I think every state that borders us now, all 8 of them have passed and regulated this industry. Welcome to the party, so to speak, Missouri.
So I want to skip,
if this passes, which I think it will pass.
So I want to skip ahead to Amendment 5, and then we'll wrap with Amendment 3. And again, we'll continue this conversation with Danny Define, host of The Next Gen, in the next segment as well. But while we have Missouri political insider Rodney Boyd on the line, like I said, let's skip to Amendment 5. This is the gambling boat at the casino at the Lake of the Ozarks. Now, what stands out to me about this, and then please let me know if there's something else that stands out to you. But if I read this correctly, it specifically says that that this amendment only grants one license. So basically, it doesn't open up like the opportunity for casinos to open up at the Lake of the Ozarks or around. This just kind of gives this one casino the right to operate at the Lake of the Ozarks, which kind of sets up basically a monopoly. Or if anybody else wants to come in, you got to go through the process again. Am I wrong about that when I read?
No, Tony, you're spot on. Real quick history. We capped the number of licenses in the state by amending the Constitution in 2008. So in 2008, there was a measure to repeal all of the sort of artificial restrictions on how much Tony could lose if he went on the boat. Remember, back in the day, they had a limit to $500 every 2 hours. You had to do this, you had to do that. Had to be a river boat, supposed to sail out, come back, yada yada, right? And the industry came into Missouri and said, "This is ridiculous. We want to take these restrictions away and open it up. You can go on. You can do it. You can lose as much as you can afford to lose, so to speak." One of the caveats in that ballot measure in 2008 was to say that, hey, we're going to take these restrictions off, and we're not going to open the floodgates of, having 100 casinos in Missouri. So we capped the number of permitted casinos to 13. I think at the time there were actually 11, and that allows for 2 more. And if you remember, shortly thereafter, the people of Cape Girardeau voted, and they gave themselves a casino, and I think we added 1 more somewhere else. That then said, hey, we're at 13. Now, if you want to get another casino license in this state because of that process, you literally have to do what's happening at Osage Beach.
Right.
You have to put together a whole campaign
Yeah.
to amend the Constitution.
Yeah.
And it's a huge hurdle.
This is a constitutional amendment to the Missouri. This is an amendment to the Missouri Constitution to build 1 casino.
Correct. And the only way you get to build a casino anywhere, setting aside this, is to go into the Constitution, because we put the hard cap in the Constitution in 2008 when we restructured how people could access the facilities that were there. And that cap was supposed to be a safety stopgap to say there won't be a mass proliferation of more casinos, because there can't be, because you got to do what's happening with this particular amendment, Missouri Amendment 5. And the cost to do this is expensive. It's a multi-million-dollar proposition for which you don't know ultimately. And someone asked me about this recently from the lake, and they said, it's frustrating that we at the lake, if we want this, we've got to ask people from Penobscot County or Newton County. This is our issue. And I said, hey, guys, and this casino gaming issue, we all got into bed together. What would have had to happen is the cap would have had to have failed in 2008. And then you'd have what we had before that was sort of an opt-in model where the local communities had to vote that they wanted a license, and then you petition for the gaming commission and you could get one. That's how it was up until we changed the Constitution back in 2008 to put the hard cap of 13.
Yeah, that really is interesting that the people of Cape Girardeau and Kirksville and Springfield and all these other places are the ones that are making up a decision that's happening specifically at the Lake of the Ozarks. But I do think it's really important that people realize that this is just a singular amendment for that 1 casino. It doesn't bring up any other, gambling rights or open up any other, gambling opportunities or casinos or whatever it may be across the state. It's just that 1 casino at the Lake of the Ozarks.
At the Ozarks.
Yep. And then Rodney, we got a few minutes left here before we'll bring Danny Define into the conversation. But I got to, of course, bring up Amendment 3, and I'm sure this will be continuing the conversation with Danny as well. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you specifically about is Amendment 3. One of the things that Amendment 3 purports to do is that it will ban the abortion procedures after fetal viability. But the way I read this, there are so many gaping loopholes and ways around that what this amendment truly does is allow for an abortion procedure at any time during a pregnancy, including very late term. Is that how you see it? And is there anything else that really stands out about Amendment 3 that maybe people don't realize because the ads on either side haven't told the whole story?
It's a tricky thing, like you said. I mean, this language can be read in different ways, which is a recipe for litigation. But the point you're talking about, which is enlisted in the key detail, that allows abortion to be restricted or banned after fetal viability, except to protect the life or health of the mother. That's an interesting line.
Or the mental health of the mother. Also, the mental health of the mother is written in there as well. So that that can be that opens up a whole other conversation.
And that's why when you're putting these various restrictions before the voters who really, it's a tough thing to analyze anyway. People end up just voting, hey, I'm pro-life or I'm pro-abortion, right? But this amendment is, I said this last week, if it is passed, and it seems like it might pass, will just become a trigger mechanism, I think, for an onslaught of litigation and an onslaught of other efforts to come back and re-amend the Constitution to address what a lot of on the pro-life side are going to say is absolutely unacceptable overreach, which is what the people on the left were saying, that the Missouri restriction that passed was triggered by the Roe decision repeal. was, oh my goodness, we went way too far the other way, right? And so, so I think we have to be prepared as a state for a long, protracted series of significant policy fights on this abortion issue. If Amendment 3 passes, which it seems like it's got the energy to pass, even if it passes by a slim margin, because all of the efforts to make it harder to amend the Constitution, none of those passed, right? So why was there so much energy last session and fighting and in and out about raising the standard for amending the Constitution? I think a lot of it was aimed directly at Amendment 3. But because those failed, the standard is not as high as others would want it. And I think that people, we talked about this, are going to vote differently on this issue because of what some people harbor as the right to not have the absolute prohibition as the final say. I can tell you that the folks who are adamant about life are not going to take this line down. I suspect you'll be back with some version of another. We saw this with Clean Missouri, where Clean Missouri passed, and you know, so this thing goes back and forth. But I looked at it, and there are some statements that on the face of this thing say one thing, and then there's another element to it that seems a little bit more broad. So I think those are the mechanisms, Tony, that trigger the litigation that will be filed and the legislation and the attempts to amend the Constitution yet again. So
you're saying that the abortion issue won't be resolved after Tuesday?
Not only not in Missouri, but absolutely not in the country, because I mean, this is an issue that has been around for 50 years, and I got a feeling it's going to be around for another 50 years.
Yeah, that doesn't make this vote any less important, because getting it in the Constitution or keeping it out of the Constitution is a huge win for either side, and which makes Amendment 3 so important. It makes all these decisions that Missourians and Americans are going to be making on Tuesday so important. And Missouri political insider Rodney Boyd, can't thank you enough for all the insight and conversation about these issues. I know we're scheduled to talk to you next Wednesday. I may come looking for you before then. So just be prepared.
Tony, it all comes. Look, this all our talking, all our conjecture, it's all over with now. It's a lot of this for you and me are going to rest in the hands and the minds of the voters.
Yes, sir.
And it comes down to next Tuesday.
Yep, absolutely. Rodney Boyd, as always, thank you so much for all your time and insight on these issues. Have a great rest of your day, my friend.
Thank you. All right.
All right, and we're going to continue the conversation. We'll talk a little bit more about Amendment 3. I also want to get into Amendment 7 a little bit, and we will do that with the host of The Next Gen, which you can hear every Sunday night here on News Talk STL. Danny Define joins us next on Colombo Company.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Yes, I listen on my phone.
Download the News Talk STL app.
News Talk STL.
Streaming live on the mobile app.
It is awesome.
And listen anytime.
Love the News Talk STL app.
Anywhere.
Taxpayers, it's time to take a stand. Meet Robert Krupp, a Maybe veteran and your Republican candidate for State Senate District 1. When it comes to lower taxes, Krupp's not budging an inch. No new tax increases, no nickel and diming working families. Krupp's a man of action standing up to the tax man, unwavering like a red, white, and blue flag flying high in the wind. This November, vote Robert Crump, a strong fighter for lower taxes. Robert Crump.
Paid for by Crump for State Senate 2024. Chris Clark, Treasurer.
Report cards are a good way to show how well your kids are doing in class and where they might need improvement. We at the Show Me Institute believe schools should get grades too, so parents can see how their child's school compares to others. That's why we came up with the Missouri School Rankings Project. Click on the website moschoolrankings.org and it's all there. Rankings and letter grades for all the schools in Missouri. The rankings are based on categories such as student performance in English language arts and math, ACT scores, and graduation rates. Then we take the rankings and come up with a grade point average, just like your child has. Each school and district has a grade, and the website is easy to use. And now we've added spending data for every district, so parents, taxpayers, and policymakers can see where the money is going. Don't you want to know how your child's school stacks up? Learn more at showmeinstitute.org. The Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
Need reliable auto service from people you can trust? Look no further than Western Tire and Auto. For over 15 years, we've been your complete automotive repair center, family owned and operated, with owner Dean Cleathermes bringing 30 years of industry experience. At Western Tire and Auto, you're not just a customer, you're family. We promise 100% satisfaction, treating you with the transparency, respect, and honesty you deserve. Visit us in St. Peters or in Florissant. For appointments, call or check westerntireauto.com. Western Tire and Auto, your local automotive experts since 2008.
For over half a century, Joe Bacardi's has been serving up a little taste of Italy right here in St. Louis. Family owned since 1971, we're more than just a restaurant. We're a local landmark. With 4 convenient locations, we offer something for everyone, from our famous pizzas to mouth-watering entrees and delicious salads. Dine in with a glass of wine or grab a quick carryout. Whether it's dinner for 2 or catering for a crowd, Joe Bacardi's has you covered. Visit joebacardi's.com and join our loyalty program. Joe Bacardi's, where every meal ends with buon appetito.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness 101. Wellness 101 is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense, science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on News Talk STL. For more information, visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
This hour of Colombo and Company brought to you by Gutter Pros. Water goes where we tell it. Call 314-656-7195 or visit them at gutterpros.com.
Welcome back to Colombo and Company on 101.994.1 News Talk STL. Rolling right along with the conversation as we approach Election Day on Tuesday. Joining us now on the line is the host of The Next Gen, which you can hear every Sunday night, 8 p.m. here on News Talk STL. Danny Define is on the line with us. And Danny, here we are, days away from the election. I want to get into some specific questions for you about specifically some of the local issues that we're facing. But first, just in general, how are you feeling about the momentum of this election and the state of this election just five days out?
Tony, good afternoon. Yeah, it's hard to believe we're only 6 days away from the election. Now, that's not to say we'll have the results on November 5th, because we all know that election night has turned into election week or election month. But nonetheless, we're 6 days out. So I am seeing from all of the reporting, like I've mentioned on your show before, on my show, The Next Gen, every Sunday night here on News Talk at 8 p.m. I don't really look too much at the polling. I look at the registered votes in these different swing states, and also what I feel like is a better benchmark, just the betting markets. I don't know if you follow or any of your listeners follow Poly Market, but it's a very popular gambling website. And the money right now that people are putting down is leaning heavily towards Trump. You're looking at 67, 68% of the people thinking Trump will win, really putting their money where their mouth is.
And there's something about those Vegas bookkeepers, right, that somehow always have their thumb on the truth.
Vegas knows, Tony. I find that on the hard way sometimes on Sunday football.
Such a great point,
Illinois, of course.
Yeah, such a great point. And then you know what else? I agree with you completely about not trusting polls or the news or what you're seeing in mainstream media, and looking at other sources like like you said, registered voters and things in the Vegas odds and things like that. But also just your gut feeling. Don't you have a gut feeling about, like, just from talking to people and being in the community and having conversations about this election and these various local races? Like, it just feels like that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are very unlikable, unpopular people. And by extension, the Democrats by extension across the country.
Yeah. Well, did you see, speaking of Tim Walz, and not to go too far on a tangent here, but
no,
did you see over the weekend, he was playing Madden on Xbox with AOC. And it looks, Tim Walz, they're trying to cater to the young millennial, Gen Z, the Zoomers, if you prefer that, the younger generation of voters. And Tim Walz looks like he's never picked up a video game controller in his life. And then he actually put out a tweet, Tony, and this anybody that knows football will know just how ridiculous this is. Tim Walz, while he was gaming against AOC and Madden, he said on Twitter, yeah, AOC really knows how to run a mean pick six. Well, if anybody follows football, a pick six is when a quarterback throws an interception and the defense takes it to the end. You don't run a
pick six.
You don't run a pick six.
There's no
Tony,
defense called pick six.
It's like Tim Walz trying to load a shotgun a few weeks
Exactly.
ago. The guy is so fake. He's such a terrible running mate. Still to this day, I don't understand why Kamala Harris picked this guy, because everything about him just it's kind of a creepy guy too.
Neither can Charlemagne the God. Charlemagne the God yesterday was saying that on an interview that we talked about, he was saying that Tim Walz, he stopped short. He said, I'm not going to call him garbage, which means he's calling him garbage. And, and said, he really that Harris really missed out by not selecting somebody like Josh Shapiro. But to your point, Danny, this guy, what have we heard about this guy? Why is he such a great guy? He's such a great guy because he served in the military and he was a football coach. Yet he can't speak on the most plain terms of football. Like you said, he can't even identify an actual play or formation in football. And he doesn't look like he's ever held or loaded a weapon in his life. So the two things that he's supposed to be, from what we've seen with our own eyes, he's not very good at either one of those things. So why would he be good at anything else?
No, that entire ballot is fake. Look at Kamala Harris. Do I really need? I could talk about her for an hour about how cringeworthy and how fake she is. But yeah, Tim Walz, man, he's a close second as far as just the fakeness and the phoniness and just the cringeworthiness. But I'm seeing that early voting is up all across the country now. It does concern me a bit because you already have. I saw a news report out of Maricopa County out in Arizona, which we all know how that went in 2020 with Maricopa County, and local broadcast out there are sort of setting the table, kind of priming people already, saying that, just to let everyone know, we most likely won't have our election results in by midnight on November 5th. It could take 10 to 15 days to get these results in, which just baffles me that we even accept this.
We shouldn't.
A lot of people don't. I know. Yeah. Majority of Americans, I think, believe this is total garbage, not to use a word of Joe Biden's recently. That was a beauty.
Yeah, no
I'm
kidding.
Sure Kamala,
we talked about that at the beginning of the show too. Yeah. But yeah, just the idea that they're sowing this they're already sowing this idea and this preparation that we're not going to know on election night, which is just it's absurd. It's ridiculous, as you said, and it sows the idea. It just creates the idea of a not fair election. Every day that goes by after election night that we don't have an answer, people are going to think that people on both sides of the aisle are up to something, and they're trying to cheat the system in some way. It's not good for the country. It's not good for the credibility of our elections. We need to know an answer on Tuesday night, and we need to hold people accountable. Danny, we only have a few minutes left, so I wanted to ask you specifically, we just dug through some of the amendments with Rodney Boyd in that last segment, some of the local amendments. The one of them that we didn't get to was Amendment 7. And Amendment 7, of course, is the one that says only citizens of the U.S. are entitled to vote in all elections in the state of Missouri. It also eliminates ranked choice voting. If there's one amendment, personally, Danny, that I think is the slam dunk yes amendment, normally I'm not for putting anything in the Constitution, but here's an example of something that absolutely should be a slam dunk yes, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on Amendment 7?
Oh, without a doubt, banning non-citizens from voting is really all you need to hear, right? That should be common sense and accepted by both parties, unless, of course, you were looking to cheat an election. Then you would want non-registered, non-citizen voters going out to vote. You would want people not having to require ID to go vote. The only people that would ever support that, non-citizens voting and not having to present a photo ID or some form of identification when you vote, are people that want to have fake and false elections. That's just a no-brainer. And I will say, we did have some great news earlier out of Virginia. Did you see where the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 in favor of Virginia? removing non-citizens off of their voter rolls. So
we
that was
talked
a big
about
one
that
there.
story a couple weeks ago when it happened. That was the whole 90-day, if listeners remember, that was the whole, there's a federal law that there's a 90-day quiet period before any federal election, that even if you find problems with your voter rolls, you're not allowed to touch them, which is already a federal law that's already a big problem. But then in Virginia, they had identified these thousands of voters that had even many of them self-identified as non-citizens that were going to be allowed to remain on the ballot. But the Supreme Court stepped in today. That was a huge decision, and you're exactly right. About the
so to
importance of that.
keep it brief, Tony.
Yeah, please.
I know we're closing in on time here, but confidence-wise, I feel very confident about this election on Tuesday. I think Donald Trump will win the election. I feel even more confident than I did in 2020 because, as we all know, we were still in the middle of COVID. There was a lot of people that went out and voted for Biden because they just couldn't stand Trump. And Biden was an established politician, right? He was a familiar face. So people thought that was more of the calm kind of candidate as compared to Trump. Whereas in this case, I don't know anybody that can look at Kamala Harris and think that is the right direction for this country. So I think even despite all of the, let's say, tomfoolery that we know is going to go on, and we're already seeing it before November 5th, it's been happening the last week with all of this early voting. And like I just mentioned, Maricopa County's had issues, Pennsylvania's had issues. But even despite all that, I do believe that Donald Trump will win, and I think it'll be a pretty significant win. And hopefully it's on November 5th. But that's really my gut instinct is leaning that way.
You know what? I agree, and I definitely feel like I agree with the idea of at least an electoral, not blowout, but not. I think that whoever wins is going to win the majority of the swing states and is going to. Therefore, electorally, at least, is going to look like a bigger win than relatively maybe against the popular vote. But I do think it's going to be, by a wide margin either way. Danny, only about 30 seconds left. Final thought, if you have one.
Final thoughts. I know we're doing a great job already in the state of Missouri and across the country of getting out there and voting early. Do your part too when you go out to vote. If it's early or on November 5th, just be vigilant. I know Missouri, it's a pretty safe state, right? I think it's safe to assume this state is going to go for Donald Trump in the presidential election, but across the country, just keep an eye out, be vigilant. And I think that's another huge bonus compared to 2020. People know to be on the lookout for any kind of nefarious behavior.
And tune in this Sunday night to The Next Gen with Danny Define. Danny, thanks as always, my friend. Great talking with you. We'll open up Closest Cabinet next.
Tim Jones here for AMF Electric. AMF Electric's industrial team, noted for its go anywhere, meet any need, and delivered on-time service. In fact, over the last almost 60 years, AMF Electric has never failed to meet a customer's needed completion deadlines. At AMF Electric, they're unabashedly pro-American. They love to work with like-minded individuals and business owners who believe in freedom of economic choice. Call them, 314-647-4066. Online, amfelectric.com. That's amfelectric.com.
With the average funeral bill over $9,000, are your loved ones prepared? Speak with Benjamin Schaefer at Senior Memorial. Contact Benjamin at memorialplans.com. Memorialplans.com. Senior Memorial, everlasting protection.
Chris Arps here, and after Becca and I leave church on Sunday, we head down the street to Capriotti's to grab a classic meatball sub. And of course, for dessert, I get a giant chocolate chip cookie. I love Capriotti's, and you will too.
On Manchester at McKnight in Rock Hill.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Belfast, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump urging his supporters dream big again.
It's going to be hard for you to do that because you've gone through a long period, but we had some great 4 years. This will be America's new golden age. This will be better than what we had even 4 years ago.
Mr. Trump spoke at a rally this afternoon in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris says she rejects the idea of criticizing people based on their votes.
I am sincere in what I mean. When elected President of the United States, I will represent all Americans, including those who don't vote for me, and address their needs and their desires.
Harris responding to the controversy over President Biden's reference to Donald Trump supporters as garbage. Also at townhall.com, fresh talks are taking place in an effort to wind down the Middle East war.
The US and other mediators are ramping up efforts to halt the wars in Lebanon and the Gaza Strip, circulating new proposals to wind down the conflict during the Biden administration's final months. Senior White House officials Brett McGurk and Amos Hochstein will visit Israel on Thursday for talks on possible ceasefires in both the areas and the release of hostages held by Hamas, according to an unnamed official. The official also said CIA Director Bill Burns was heading to Egypt on Thursday to discuss those efforts. Negotiations on both fronts have been stalled for months, and none of the warring parties have shown any sign of backing down from their demands. I'm Charles Dillerdesma.
The Yanks win Game 4 of the World Series, 11-4. Game 5 tonight in New York. LA leads the series 3-1. A lower close on Wall Street, the Dow dropping 78 points. The NASDAQ was off 104. More at townhall.com.
Don't just grin and bear it or bite the bullet when it comes to everyday pain. Don't. Try Relief Factor, a drug-free daily supplement that helps your body fight pain naturally. Relief Factor doesn't just mask pain, it helps reduce or even eliminate it. It's 100% drug-free. It's developed by doctors. In 3 weeks or less, you'll know whether it works for you like it works for me. Try Relief Factor for yourself. Go to relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF and save on your first order. That's 1-800-4-RELIEF.
Hey, it's Matt Walsh, podcaster, best-selling children's author, and world-renowned DEI consultant. My hit comedy and #1 grossing documentary of the decade, Am I Racist?, is now streaming exclusively on Daily Wire Plus. I went undercover into the world of DEI and got the elites of the establishment to say all the quiet parts out loud. The only way to watch Am I Racist is with a Daily Wire Plus membership. Head to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code DEI for 35% off your new annual membership. Don't miss it. Am I Racist? Streaming now exclusively on Daily Wire Plus.
St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Live and local.
Welcome home. And whoosh, sitting in traffic, stuck in a jam, and being entertained by Vic and thunder-stealing Ken.
This is News Talk STL.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Personally, for Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton, dry this evening and warm and breezy, but a line of storms overnight has our attention. It'll push through St. Louis around 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. Could be some strong gusty winds with this. And the low of 65 in the morning. The rain moves east by mid to late morning. We're dry the rest of Halloween. High of 67 in the afternoon. Breezy, cooler temperatures will fall into the 50s for Halloween evening. Then Friday, sunshine and near normal with a high of 63. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
News, analysis, opinion.
This has been a deadly storm.
Category 4 hurricane.
Historic, epic, life-threatening flooding. 1 million that are without power.
Israel's iron fist can reach anywhere in the Middle East.
It's not just Hamas.
Right now, Hezbollah is in shambles.
The American people are going to be shocked by what we will report to them about the failures by the Secret Service.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
St. Louis is #1
for conservative talk.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Jewels on Hampton, paying some of the highest prices for your gold, silver, diamonds, and more. Call 314-752-5000 or visit jewelsonhampton.com.
Liberal media pundits are desperate to characterize Trump's Madison Square Garden rally as a gathering of Nazis. The game of moral limbo goes lower and lower. I'm Tommy Lahren. More next.
Hey, Donald Trump Jr. here. Central banks are buying gold at record amounts, and the trend is accelerating in 2024. They see the writing on the wall. The dollar is failing. Is gold the answer for you too? To find out, get a free info kit from Birch Gold Group by texting the word SHELTER to 989898. That's SHELTER to the number 989898 to get your free info kit from Birch Gold, the only gold company I trust, right now.
Message and data rates may apply.
Media pundits are losing their mind over Trump's sold-out rally at Madison Square Garden. Worse, many characterize it as a gathering of Nazis. Weird, given how many Israeli flags were present, but nevertheless, I'm not sure if their outrage is pure performative, but either way, it's actually dangerous. Not only does calling Trump Hitler endanger his life, one that's hung in the balance at least twice in the last 4 months, but the way they're speaking about his supporters also puts us in danger. It's reckless and it's sick, So let me say this. If you are a Trump supporter, by golly, be proud of it. But keep your head on a swivel because this is no joke. I'm Tommy Lahren, and you can watch my show, Tommy Lahren is Fearless, at Outkick.com.
So many ways to listen to News Talk STL.
Join the conversation. All you have to do is say,
Hey, Alexa, play News Talk STL.
Welcome to News Talk STL, conservative talk radio for St. Louis.
When I think of Lorelei, my head turns all around. As gentle as a butterfly, she moves without
There's no
sound.
doubt the artist of today's opening song. That is one of the most distinct voices in rock and roll. It is time to open up Closest Cabinet here on Colombo Company on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL. And when we open up Closest Cabinet, we play a song from Stel Babe, Stel Ponticus, the producer of Mike Ferguson in the Morning. And this week is very obviously Styx. Mark Close from KC95, Skip Weber from Weber Chevrolet. Join us, Marker. No doubt about that voice. I don't know. I don't have the trivia or anything behind this song or why. Stel picked Lorelei, but clearly Styx opening up your segment this week. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Yeah, Styx, what a great band. Still out rocking. They've had their changes with people. Dennis Young, the original lead vocalist that you hear on all their big hits for the most part, left the band. God, it's probably been 10 years ago. So they still go out, and they kind of came to an impasse. He wanted to do more of the mellow stuff, the Babe, the ballads. The rest of the guys wanted to rock. And then Dennis Young kind of got sick and couldn't tour, and they still wanted to go out. So now you've got Styx going out, and then you've got Dennis Young, formerly of Styx.
Yeah, and they all go out and sing the same songs.
Yes, exactly. Well, some of the same stuff, but yeah, he kind of changed more of it. But he still does some of the rock because, he wrote a lot of it and vocal and keyboard and stuff. So they're still a big draw, man. They're a big draw.
Absolutely. Skip, your thoughts on Dennis Young, Styx, Lorelei? What are your thoughts about the opening song this week?
So I was 11 years old when that song came out. And that album, Equinox, was instantly my favorite album. And I was a Styx fanatic for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
A couple albums later was The Grand Illusion, which is one of their most famous albums. First album I spent my own money on. I went to Chesterfield Mall and bought the album myself.
That's a major statement.
But the crossroads of this album is it's their fourth album. They were already mildly popular, not huge, and they had a guitarist named John Kurlewski. And they put this album out. It was their best album to date. It had this and Light Up and a couple other good songs. And John Kurlewski was just tired of just being mediocre, and he quit and went to spend time with his family before they even toured to support the album. And so they interviewed a lot of other guitarists to play for their tour, and they interviewed a young guy by the name of Tommy Shaw, who filled in for Kurlewski on the tour, and became their regular guitarist. And that's when they took off. His writing and his sometimes lead vocals, otherwise backup vocals, and his guitar player. The next album was Crystal Ball, then Grand Illusion. They got bigger and bigger and bigger. So this is like the crossroads of the last of the original. But Tommy Shaw is who everybody knows. I mean, that's what everybody thinks of as Styx.
Yep, absolutely.
And he's still the front man, without Dennis Young. He's still there. So just a cool band. And there's 4 or 5 bands at different times I say are my very favorite at different times in my life. And Styx for I think from age like 11 to 16 was just my favorite.
So we've had this exact conversation about various bands and breakups when, some of the band goes this way, or specifically like it's usually the lead singer breaks away. So this is a perfect question for this exact moment, especially for you, Skip, because you are such a fan of Styx. Right now, if you could go see one or the other, would you like to see all of the original members of Styx, besides Dennis Young, sing Styx songs right now? Or would you rather go see Dennis Young with a backup band so the voice is right. So it's the actual voice of the song. Which one, as a Styx fan, is a bigger deal, more important to you?
So it would be close because some of their favorite songs they had was Tommy Shaw singing.
Okay.
He wrote it. He
Yeah.
sang it. So some of their big songs, they don't realize he sounded enough like it. And there was a couple songs by a guy by the name of James Young, who was another original member, that he sang. Not the really super hits. Dennis DeYoung has a distinctive voice, but because of that, because I'd almost rather see the original members, just to see those guys up there. Now, one of them has passed away from cancer. There's two brothers. Their bass player the bass player and drummer were brothers, and I believe the drummer has passed away, had cancer. But other than that, I mean, you have the original guys. I still would think that a Dennis DeYoung show would be awesome, though.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. And both Tommy Shaw and Dennis DeYoung had decent solo careers. Tommy Shaw was in Damn Yankees, too, with Ted Nugent. So if they played some of their solo stuff along with it, they would also be good. Dennis DeYoung had a couple good solo albums. Tommy Shaw did, too. So that would also be fun, too, to hear that if that individual group would add that to the playlist.
Mark, you got any Dennis DeYoung stories or anything that you've heard about Dennis DeYoung? Because I know that I've heard various stories just secondhand over the years that he's, like so many rock and roll guys, kind of an eccentric person. You got any memories of Styx or Dennis DeYoung?
Well, it's, we worked with him. We had him at Rock and Cholesterol a couple of times. His wife is his manager, travels with him, and she guards him, man. She makes sure that he's taken care of. He's very, very theatrical, even in person. And when you get him on stage, man, it's flamboyant, man.
Yes.
He's bringing it out there, and the arms are flying, and it's great. And I haven't heard him with his own band on Styx in a couple of years, but the last time I heard, he was still there. The voice was there. He still killed it. He sounded great. I know he was a fan of the morning show. He used to text Sabaz and Johnny with questions on Casey and stuff. So
wow.
Yeah, he's quite the performer.
Yes. I've dealt with people like that over the years, and believe it or not, in talk radio, that happens as well. I remember we've had it over the years, the last 20 years, bringing in big people in the political world or the talk world. And I remember the couple times when we would bring somebody like Glenn Beck in, and it was just I'm not bringing up Glenn Beck for any political reason. I'm just saying that he was a very theatrical person, both on and off the stage, and was treated by the people around him very theatrically on and off the stage. Yeah. Not in a bad way, not in a good way, not saying anything, but just that everything was very, and to your point about Dennis DeYoung, I remember just randomly, I didn't even realize that was going to be the song today. So this is literally just off the top of my head, thinking about it. To this day, you can pull up on YouTube videos of Dennis DeYoung playing at an estate fair. He's on it's a flatbed truck stage or whatever, and yet he is still giving it he'll go and get the mask for Mr. Roboto and unveil it it was the biggest stage production of all time. Right. He's very much into it. But Skip, that's why people love him, right? I mean, it's that kind of over the top passion and involvement that makes somebody so impactful.
You do got to love him for that at this stage. I'll tell you, back in about 1982 or so, I was very bitter toward him. I will never forgive him for Mr. Roboto. Terrible. It was so unlike Styx. And that album is what broke them apart.
Yeah.
James Young and Tommy Shaw did not want to do more like that, and Dennis DeYoung wanted to do more like that. Mm-hmm. And so that's what broke them apart originally. But yeah, he wanted to be the next Pete Townsend or Roger Waters, write a pure concept, legendary, rock opera or something like that. And it was just bloody awful.
Well,
just hated
it's
Mr.
as
Roboto.
important to him today, at least in the videos that I've seen.
Yeah.
It's as important to him today as it ever was before. He treats that Mr. Roboto mask like gold.
It's probably why they split up again. They probably argued about doing it in concert on these retro concerts. I know that the other members of the band hated it.
Yeah. No, that's what we've. Yeah, that's always been the story of Styx, and that that split on that album, that song, that the direction of what type of music to perform going forward. And I think Mark said it perfectly. The theatrical ness of Dynasty Young is what means everything. Yeah. Final thought. It sounds like you want to say one more thing, Skip. Go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Okay, good. Very good.
I don't know what. Yeah.
Sorry, I thought I cut you off there. I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good.
So we are leading into the holiday season here, unbelievably. Halloween in just a couple of days, Thanksgiving right around the corner, and there was a survey done online by Campbell's Soup, by the way. So this isn't like some just like random TikTok account doing some.
Wait.
Uh-huh. I'm waiting.
You cannot say soup.
Oh yeah,
that's Campbell's Soup.
I was gonna say the same thing. I was like, didn't we talk about that?
Campbell's.
It's just Campbell's.
You're
hurting the brand.
Their branding doesn't. Yeah, they don't want soup on their brand anymore because it hurts their brand.
We covered this.
Yeah, you're so right.
You're
so right.
Keep
I
up.
apologize to the Campbell's people. Please don't send the cease and desist. We will only refer to you as Campbell's. So Campbell's released its annual Thanksgiving poll this week, and it asks on there for people, what are your various favorites, when it comes to desserts and drinks and all kinds of stuff. And it asks, as it always does, what is your favorite side item? And for years and years, it's been mashed potatoes. And this year, mashed potatoes, and what is literally being called a surprising, shocking upset, mashed potatoes is no longer America's favorite side item at Thanksgiving. You want to take a guess at what it is? It's another pretty obvious one, but I think this is wild. Marker, you want to take a guess at what dethroned mashed potatoes?
Dressing?
Stuffing.
Stuffing.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Same. Right. Stuffing has, which, Skip, I'm calling BS. Listen, I'm fine with stuffing, but mashed potatoes, no Thanksgiving meal is complete. It's part of it. You can't have Thanksgiving without mashed potatoes. You may not be, some people would say the same thing about stuffing, but mashed potatoes.
The Pilgrims did not have stuffing. That was later. The Pilgrims guaranteed had mashed potatoes.
I don't think the Pilgrims had. They might have had potatoes. I wouldn't bet their mashed potatoes.
All right, wait a minute. Are you questioning Skip's historical recollection?
No. Yeah. Something tells me that they didn't put a little cream, mashed potatoes, some butter on top. They might have had potatoes. They were roasted.
That's it. That's the Pilgrim food. They made mounds of it. Looked like their hats.
Yeah, they just mashed it down with their forks.
They stuck the butter on top.
But the thing about mashed potatoes is you get those all year long. You get them with
right,
meatloaf,
because they're the best side item in the world.
But it's special. But for Thanksgiving, a specific holiday, that's when you don't get dressing that often, or whatever you want to call it, stuffing or whatever. That's what makes it so special.
Okay, well, explain the rest of this list then. Okay, then by that, then it should be all Thanksgiving related side items. However, after mashed potatoes, it's sweet potatoes. Then it's green bean casserole, which I hate. I know a lot of people love. I know it's beloved. I just don't like it. But again, not something that you could have green bean casserole all year round. And then number 5 is mac and cheese, macaroni and cheese,
which is stupid. Anyway, but in fact, we'll go back because I've had this discussion with our friend Glover many times.
Yeah,
you go into a grocery store.
Yeah,
any grocery store, starting maybe in the next week or so.
Oh, probably starting now. Yeah.
Okay,
Unfortunately,
you
I think
will
we're there.
see
Yeah.
Huge displays of green beans, mushroom soup, and those dried onions. And that's only during Thanksgiving, which means the green bean casserole is a Thanksgiving. And yams, sweet potatoes.
Don't you get
even
yams.
Thanksgiving.
Don't you bring
Yeah,
me
but
your
then-
yams.
But it's always Thanksgiving. You don't eat yams the rest of the year. Strictly Thanksgiving. Mashed potatoes.
So I'm kind of leaning. I'm kind of leaning toward Mark because sweet potatoes are available on menus and lots of people eat them, but not with the marshmallow top and the glaze and that stuff. The way that you prepare them for Thanksgiving, that's the only time.
Okay.
We have green.
But you're getting off the main point here. The main point here is the Pilgrims and mashed potatoes. Mashed potatoes is number two. It's our number one. Mashed potatoes is number one, period.
I kind of agree with Mark, but that's all a diversion of his to not believe that the Pilgrims had mashed potatoes.
Right. Well, and then, okay, so the potatoes, the Pilgrims are eating their mashed potatoes, and then what? French fries? Tater tots?
No, they knew you had to put in a cup of milk.
They didn't know. They didn't know about deep frying. That's the only way they knew how to make potatoes.
But they would bake them. They didn't mash them. They
mashed them up with their fork. They just kind of mashed them up with their fork.
They didn't have forks.
They boiled them in pots and mashed them just like we do.
They added the butter and the milk and the cream and everything.
The milk, and the cheese on top.
Look,
exactly.
Look,
really,
Mark, have you ever seen the pictures of the paintings and stuff of the first Thanksgiving with those long tables of everybody sitting? You can't individually bake a potato for everybody at that.
There's mounds
that would
of
take
mashed
forever.
potatoes. Mountains
you
of
have
them.
to boil a bunch of potatoes and mash them up so you can pass them around.
Everybody knows that, Mark.
The Native Americans knew that.
The Native Americans knew about mashed potatoes, Mark.
They were actually eating yam. I think the first potato they had actually was a yam, but that's another story. So
I am not.
And marshmallows.
Listen.
And the Pilgrims had marshmallows on their yam. Don't ask me where they got them, but they got marshmallows on their yam.
Bottom line is mashed potatoes are the number one side, and I will not hear anything of it. You cannot even envision any type of a meal that would be described as a Thanksgiving dinner without mashed potatoes on your plate.
Agreed.
There's just no way.
They had if you go to the National Museum in London, you can get there's a giant case there with a letter that Miles Standish sent back to the Queen that said, please send us more potatoes and marshmallows.
And marshmallows.
Everybody.
We just ate them all
knows
for
that.
Thanksgiving.
Everybody knows that. I'll even give you this. I even love instant mashed potatoes. I mean, listen, I'm not saying to replace anything. I'm not saying that for your Thanksgiving dinner, but that's how good mashed potatoes are. Even the cheapest, most basic version of mashed potatoes is still great.
I think you just lost me.
No.
Yeah.
I also include about an entire carton of sour cream when
no
I
matter
make
what,
my
they're good.
mashed potatoes.
I
No matter
agree.
what,
no,
they are good.
You know the kind that they have the grocery store, unpaid sponsorship right now. I don't know what brand, but whatever.
Go for it.
You go to the grocery store, they're like $2.
Yeah,
it's like a whole tub of mashed potatoes. That's
right.
Dinner.
I know. All you gotta do is boil water. All you gotta do is boil water.
There's the kind you can just put in the microwave. You
I'll
don't
tell you
even
what.
need to boil water.
You know what? You ever tried a mashed potato sandwich? Just put on some mashed potatoes right between two pieces of bread.
Can't say I have.
Wow.
Well, do it. You can't go wrong. It's a little starchy. But you
We
can't
just
go
lost.
wrong.
Somebody just changed the station. Talk about carbs.
Mark, it's last thing for both of you guys. Everybody ready for Halloween? Marker, I know you're a big fan of people coming up to the door and walking in the yard and everything.
Oh yeah. I've got barbed wire up and some cross. Actually, the first year we moved here, we're on kind of a big yard, and so we had one kid the very first year, like 9 years ago, and our houses are like on an acre and a half, whatever. And these kids, they get the end of our driveway, and you got to give them an IV. They can't even have it. It's too much of a walk. So it's like, now we don't, no one came. So I just buy the candy and eat it myself. Puts me in a festive mood. So
yeah, my wife, we went to, she went to Target last week, and she was like, "Oh, I bought the Halloween candy." It's like one bag. She's one of these
Is
people.
it the minis?
It's the minis, and it's like one. It's like one bag. Skip, listen. I know, Skip. Like you can't do that. You gotta look. I don't mind the minis, but I do a handful. I do a handful of where you get 5 or 6.
That's barely better.
Yeah,
that's barely better. Those little candy bars are not candy.
I know.
Come on.
I know you're a very much a full size candy bar person, and I completely understand.
And the problem is, since we don't live in the same place because our house burned down a year and a half ago, and where we live we have none. We have no, and it's a shame because where we used to live had very few, but are passing out the full-size candy bars and rewarding the best jokes with the second full-size candy bar and that like that. We built up a clientele.
You were the beacon of Halloween.
6 or 7 kids the first year to by the time it was our last Halloween there, we had 30 or 40. And there's places that get a lot more, but if you saw where our house was isolated like that.
Yeah.
We had people, we were a destination trick or treat.
Yes, you were.
And that's the way it should be.
Yes,
that is the way it should be. Full-size Hershey bars, full-size Three Musketeers, all that, that's the only way.
I know Mark used to put a barricade up at his driveway with a map to your house at the end of the driveway to tell kids don't go here, go to this place house, go over to this house.
But you better have a joke.
Right, you better have it. And actually, our first year, we gave away boxes of raisins and toothbrushes.
Oh, come on. That's even worse than the guy who's giving away nickels. That's as bad. That's as bad as it gets.
You know what? I got a very good idea. I've got a great idea.
What's that?
If you want to give something healthy, mashed potatoes.
There you go. Just like the Pilgrims.
Give everybody a scoop of mashed potatoes.
Absolutely.
Mashed potatoes right into their bag.
I once threw out ramen noodles on homecoming court instead of candy. So I was like, let's do something original. So ramen noodles about the same cost if you look at it inside candy bar.
Now you
give the kids something.
You know what?
They can
Don't
eat.
give Mark any ideas with the ramen.
Anybody that comes to the door dressed as a pilgrim gets 2 handfuls of mashed potatoes.
2 scoops of mashed potatoes. Mark, before we wrap things up, Mark, anything happening with the band? Anything we need to let people know about that is happening out there?
Yeah. We're actually playing Saturday night. We're going to be at 61 Roadhouse in Webster Groves. It is 7 till 10. If you have 4 or more, go online, make sure to get your name, and that way they'll make sure that you have a table. We get a big crowd, man. We get them. We kind of sell the joint out. We have a great time. We got a couple of new songs. We picked up a new Head East song that we're playing called "Love Me Tonight" from their album Flat.
Oh, what a great tune!
It's a great tune.
Have you ever considered adding Mr. Roboto?
You know what? I thought about it in the rest of the band. I said I wanted to do it in the rest of the band.
Oh no!
So I tried.
Mr. Roboto strikes again.
Young. That's right. So yeah, we'll be there Saturday from 7 to 10. Come on by.
Yeah, and Skip, the end of October, unbelievably. What's the latest at Weber Chevrolet?
Well, another great month, just fueled by our prices and our inventory. So I don't have a lot of specific details, but we actually had our biggest month of selling electric vehicles this month if you combine all of our stores together, which was pretty good. That's taken off a little bit, but about to where it's about where it's supposed to be at. I think maybe about a 10% or 12% of our sales is all, which is fine. But yeah, we're doing really well with everything, and very, very happy with it.
Yeah, we lost Mark. Apparently, that's what he thinks of the electric vehicles. Maybe I don't know. Yeah, 10%. But you know what? That does sound about right, Skip. Like that doesn't surprise me, and that's about
all we really. I mean, that's what you need really, because it's not for everybody. It's more expensive. Here, there's just not everybody likes it. It became too much political hot point, but they're really, really cool cars and fun to drive. They're just great technology. So yeah, it's neat.
Yeah, they are. There's definitely a group, a demographic of people that is for, and you can get them if you are in that demographic. You can absolutely take advantage of it. So Skip, as always, really appreciate your time. Mark's already gone apparently, so thanks again. Have a happy Halloween, and we'll talk to you next week, my friend. Thanks so much.
Sounds great. Happy Halloween, guys.
Yeah, back at you. Great stuff there. Closest Cabinet on Colombo and Company with Mark Close from KC95 and brought to you by Weber Chevrolet. And that was Skip Weber right there as well. All right, we're going to jump back into some politics before we have to wrap things up here. Just 6 days away from Election Day. You're listening to Colombo and Company on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Tonight's the night she's moving in.
Follow Tony Colombo on Twitter at Tony Colombo Talks. If you have a phone, you have a radio. Download the News Talk STL app and listen anytime, anywhere.
Grasser Electric is the team to call if you have any electrical need or project or problem at your home or your business. We discovered Grasser Electric a few years ago when we moved into our new home and just could not recommend them enough to anybody that has an electrical issue or an electrical project in mind. Grasser specializes in all electrical needs ranging from large scale commercial projects all the way down to simple home service needs such as replacing a bad light switch. And like I said, we've had them in our home for multiple reasons, from bigger projects to smaller little service needs. And every time the technicians at Grasser Electric just knock it out of the park. They are the customer service that they provide. They are the exact type of professionals that you want to, if you're going to let somebody in your home to do work like, the electrical work on your home or business, you want that type of professionalism and customer service that they provide at Grasser Electric. So again, whether it be a project that you're working on or an electrical issue at your home or business, Grasser Electric does it all. Learn more about what they can do for you and contact them now through the website, grasserelectric.com.
John Beal knows that right after a hailstorm, new roofing companies start popping up everywhere. But the Small Business Administration reports 96% of them go out of business within the first 5 years. So how good is that warranty? John Beal started in the roofing business, helping his granddad and his dad. Always offering the best roof, best price, best guarantee. John Beal Roofing, not some fly-by-the-night operation. Call my friend John, 1-800-NEW-ROOF, 1-800-NEW-ROOF.
This is Larry Connor's commentary on News Talk STL.
Let me begin by saying I've always liked Fleetwood Mac. Several songs, Dreams, The Chain, Landslide, I've seen them perform, but listening to their music will not be the same going forward. Recently, lead singer Stevie Nicks said after their third album, she got pregnant. She said a baby would have destroyed all of her dreams. She said, I'm not the kind of woman who would have my baby handed over to a nanny, not in a million years. So we would be dragging a baby around the world with me. I couldn't do that to my baby. So I decided to have an abortion. Stevie was suggesting it would be cruel to the baby to take the child with her as Fleetwood Mac traveled the world. So rather than the baby being shuttled around, sometimes in the hands of a nanny, she decided it'd be easier on the child to have an abortion. Again, as she said, dragging a baby on tour, I wouldn't do that to my baby. She didn't even consider adoption. She chose abortion, making it easier on the baby. As good as her songs are, there is no song worth more than a baby, not a single one. Vote no on Missouri Amendment 3.
Get more Larry Connors on Larry Connors USA.
Tonight at 6 on News Talk STL.
You know, when you're car shopping, it should be fun, not a chore. That's why when you visit Ackerman Toyota on Hampton, just south of 44, you'll enjoy the largest customer lounge to make you feel at home. You can always check AckermanToyota.com, but come enjoy the Ackerman hospitality. We'll be waiting to help you get what you want, and while you're relaxing. Ackerman Toyota, #1 in 2023. Ackerman Toyota, for life.
Attention thrill seekers and fun lovers. Did you know the Midwest's largest wooden roller rink is right here in Missouri? Welcome to Piccadilly Palace, your ultimate family entertainment destination. Glide across our massive skating floor, conquer arcade challenges, put your way through mini golf, and dive into cutting-edge virtual reality experiences. And coming soon, a relaxing bar and grill patio, state-of-the-art golf simulators, and heart-pounding two-story go-kart racing next to East Central College in Union, Missouri. Plan your visit now at PiccadillyPalace.com. That's PiccadillyPalace.com.
The Cafe Napoli family is adding another great place for you to enjoy. Where? Well, first, let me remind you, you have the original Cafe Napoli, downtown Clayton. Napoli 2, Town and Country. Napoli 3 on the streets of St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. Plus, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. And opening soon, Napoli Kirkwood, right downtown Kirkwood Road. Napoli Kirkwood.
Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are ignoring kitchen table issues. Liberals are fighting to defund the police, indoctrinate kids, open the border, and put boys in girls' sports. I'm Ann Wagner. The people I talk to know better. Let's work for what matters most. Lower costs, parents' rights, and safer streets.
Ann Wagner is working for common sense solutions to the problems you face. She's challenged the big government machine in Washington and delivered a tax cut for middle-class families. Ann has stood with parents to defend their right to make decisions on the upbringing, education, and care of their children, protecting our kids from radical leftist indoctrination. And as crime rises, Ann has worked to protect our safety by fighting efforts to defund our brave police.
I'm Ann Wagner, and I approve this message. So pull up a chair, and together we'll turn the tables on Washington.
Fighting for your family. Ann Wagner for Congress. Paid for by Ann Wagner for Congress.
News Talk STL is proud to have Doug Voss of Safe Bunny Radio as part of our lineup each week. Doug has been a staple on the St. Louis radio airways for many years as one of the leading financial experts in the area. You can now hear Doug and Safe Bunny Radio 3 times every week yet on News Talk STL. But in case you miss anything, you can check it all out at DougVossSafeBunnyRadio.com. What else do our listeners need to know, Doug?
Simply put, I focus on helping pre-retirees and retirees build, preserve, and protect retirement assets, and I've been helping my clients solve their insurance and financial needs for the past 33 years. I also strive to educate my clients on how to prepare for retirement, minimize the impact of market volatility on their assets, and deal with the challenges of increased longevity. Call me today at 844-676-SAFE. That's 844-676-7233.
Doug Voss is a registered representative. Securities offered through DHL Securities, LLLP. Member FINRA and SIPC.
On the next Larry Connors USA.
On one hand, Harris praises Biden, but then she tells an audience, my administration will not be the same as Joe Biden's.
Larry Connors USA. Now, weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
Welcome back to Colombo Company on 101.994.1 News Talk STL. Tony Colombo here in studio with producer Emily. Big thanks again to Mark Close and Skip Weber for joining us for Close's Cabinet, taking a little break, having a little fun there in that last segment. And in the 2 o'clock hour today, we dug into it all. If you missed anything in the 2 o'clock hour, this is a perfect example of why you should be subscribed to our podcast. We put the show out as a podcast right after we get off the air every day. But we talked to Danny Define, host of The Next Gen, which you can hear every Sunday night here on News Talk STL, and Missouri political insider Rodney Boyd, and, dug through specifically, into some of the various amendments and races that are happening in Missouri that are going to be decided on Tuesday, and getting deep into some of those issues. So just a reminder that if you want to make sure that you never miss anything that happens here on the show, subscribe to Colombo and Company on your favorite podcast platform, because we put the show out as a podcast right after we get off the air every day and basically put it on every podcast platform. Want to remind you about election night coverage. Nobody is going to have you covered better than we are on election night. Of course, we will be here for you every day leading up to the election, and also with all the news and information and all the fallout after the election. But on Tuesday night, starting at 7 p.m., myself and Vic Porcelli will be here in studio, and all night long as it takes to get the, if there's going to be a decision made on Tuesday night, we will be here for it. And we will be checking in all night long, getting live reports from the entire News Talk STL team, which will be spread out across the area. Plus, we will be bringing you up-to-the-minute election results, one-stop shopping for everything you need when it comes to election night right here at News Talk STL and Election Night coverage. Got to say a big thank you. Election Night coverage is brought to you by Harry J's Steakhouse in Moscow Mills and Piccadilly Palace in Union and Patriot Powder Coating and Iron Bar Customs in Pacific. Election night is going to be an absolutely wild night. One of those things that we talked about with Danny and Rodney is the idea of getting an answer on Tuesday night. We can all hope that happens. And, we can all hope that happens. And if it does happen, we will be here to bring it to you. And if it doesn't happen, if we don't get an answer on Tuesday night, I think that is just bad for the country and continues to add to, any type of, unconfidence in our elections here in the country. One thing that we'll get into tomorrow, because we're almost out of time today, but we talk about early voting, and early voting is great, and it is something that you should be participating in. But drop boxes across the country continue to be a problem. There was another drop box vandalism issue that happened in Washington State last night. About 475 ballots were damaged when a drop box in the state of Washington was set on fire. And, again, these are the issues. These are the issues that just continue to create a problem with the confidence in our elections. And early voting is great, but enough with the drop boxes. And so we'll get into all those stories and more as we get closer and closer to Election Day. Emily and I will be back tomorrow at 2 o'clock. In the meantime, keep it here for the O'Reilly Report next in the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show on News Talk STL.
Need reliable auto service from people you can trust? Look no further than Western Tire and Auto. For over 15 years, we've been your complete automotive repair center, family owned and operated.